There is a rhythm to existence, a silent cadence beneath the noise of our daily lives. Every challenge, every pause, every moment of uncertainty is not an obstacle. It is a note in the grand composition of who we are becoming. The greatest ideas are not summoned, they emerge like dawn breaking after the long hush of night. They are whispers from the unseen, echoes of something greater, calling us to listen, to feel, to align. We often think brilliance arrives in a flash, but in truth, it is sculpted in the stillness, in the spaces between, when the mind is quiet enough to hear what the soul has always known. The universe does not rush, and neither should we. Your best ideas are not missing, they are waiting for you to slow down, to notice, to remember that you are not merely thinking, you are participating in the great unfolding of something infinite. Some people believe that ideas are born from nothing, that they suddenly appear like a lightning bolt in a dark sky. But ideas don't come from nowhere. They don't simply materialize out of thin air. The best ideas, the ones that move us, that shape industries, that redefine the way we see the world, are not created, they are discovered. They have always been there, waiting for us to uncover them, waiting for us to see what has been hidden in plain sight. Think about it. A sculptor does not create the masterpiece from nothing. The statue is already inside the marble. All the sculptor does is chip away what doesn't belong, revealing what was always there. The same is true of ideas. They exist beneath the surface of our minds, waiting for us to clear away the distractions, the doubts, the assumptions that blind us to what is possible. And yet, most of us believe we have to chase ideas. As if they are running away from us, we force ourselves to think harder, to try more, to push through mental barriers. But what if the real secret to generating your best ideas isn't about thinking harder, it's about seeing clearer? What if the greatest insights don't come from relentless effort, but from the ability to recognize what has been there all along? Look at the greatest breakthroughs in history. They didn't come from nowhere. They came from people who saw connections no one else noticed. Isaac Newton didn't invent gravity, he simply saw what had always been true. Marie Curie didn't create radioactivity, she uncovered something hidden in nature. The Wright brothers didn't invent flight, they observed the patterns of birds and trusted the principles that had been there since the beginning of time. Ideas are not summoned, they are revealed. And the ones who uncover them are those who are willing to step outside of their own assumptions, to question what they believe they already know. It's not about being the smartest person in the room, it's about being the most open. But that's the hard part, isn't it? Being open means letting go. Letting go of the need to have all the answers. Letting go of the fear of being wrong. Letting go of the belief that inspiration is something we control rather than something we receive. The truth is, most people miss their best ideas because they are too busy looking for them in the wrong places. They search in logic and rules and expectations, when the best ideas often live in the spaces between, the spaces of curiosity, of wonder, of stillness. This is why we need to slow down. Not because slowing down is comfortable, but because it is necessary. When we pause, we allow our minds to connect the invisible dots, to recognize the patterns that have always been there, just waiting to be seen. Think about the moments when your best ideas have come to you. Was it when you were desperately trying to force them, or was it in the shower, on a walk, in the quiet moments between thoughts? The reason is simple. Our minds are designed to find ideas, not chase them. So the next time you find yourself struggling to come up with that breakthrough, remember, you are not trying to create something from nothing. You are simply revealing what has always been there. Your best ideas are not hiding from you. They are waiting for you to see them. We live in a world that worships noise. Everywhere we turn, there's something demanding our attention. Notifications, conversations, deadlines, expectations. We've been conditioned to believe that productivity means constant movement, that thinking means actively grinding through problems, that if we're not filling the space with effort, we must not be doing enough. But the irony is, the best ideas, the truly transformative ones, don't come from the noise, they come from the silence. Silence is where ideas breathe. It's the space between the notes that makes the music meaningful. Without that space, it's just noise, constant, overwhelming, and incoherent. But with space, with pause, suddenly there's rhythm, there's a structure, there's something worth listening to. The greatest thinkers, the most creative minds, the innovators who reshape the world, they didn't arrive at their ideas by drowning in busyness. They arrived at them in moments of quiet. Einstein was known for taking long walks alone, letting his mind drift into unknown territory. Steve Jobs insisted on silent meditation retreats, stepping away from the noise so he could see more clearly. Some of the most powerful breakthroughs in history happened not when people were trying harder, but when they stopped trying at all. And yet, silence makes most of us uncomfortable. We avoid it. We fill every empty moment with something, scrolling through our phones, turning on music, checking emails, distracting ourselves. It's almost as if we're afraid of what we might hear when the noise is gone. But that's the point. Silence is uncomfortable because it forces us to listen not just to the world around us, but to ourselves. And that's where the best ideas live. Think about the moments when inspiration has struck you. Was it in the middle of a chaotic brainstorming session? Or was it in the shower, on a quiet morning drive, lying in bed just before sleep? Ideas don't shout, they whisper, and if we're too busy filling the silence, we'll never hear them. Our minds are constantly processing, making connections we're not even aware of, but they need space to do it. When we sit in silence, when we embrace the pause, something incredible happens. Thoughts that once seemed disconnected suddenly align. Patterns emerge, new insights reveal themselves. Creativity isn't about force, it's about allowing the mind to do what it was designed to do. But here's the challenge. Making space for silence requires intention. It's not just about turning off the noise around us, it's about quieting the noise within us. The constant self-talk, the doubts, the pressure to perform, to generate ideas on demand. But creativity doesn't work that way. The mind, just like the body, needs rest. And when we give it that rest, when we allow ourselves to simply be instead of always doing, we tap into something deeper. So if you want to generate your best ideas, don't just think harder. Step away. Go for a walk. Sit with your thoughts without trying to control them. Let the silence do its work. Because in that silence, something remarkable happens. The mind doesn't need noise to think. It needs space to see. We spend so much of our lives avoiding challenges. We see them as roadblocks, as signs that we're off course, as reasons to stop and turn back. But what if the struggle isn't a detour? What if it's the path? What if the very thing we try to avoid is the thing designed to sharpen us, to shape our thinking, to lead us to the breakthrough we've been searching for? Some of the best ideas in history weren't born out of comfort. They were born out of frustration, out of constraints, out of moments when there seemed to be no way forward. Think of Thomas Edison, failing 1,000 times before discovering the filament that would power the light bulb. Think of J.K. Rowling, rejected by publisher after publisher before one finally said yes. Think of the Wright brothers, who spent years watching their prototypes crash before one finally took flight. None of these breakthroughs happened in spite of the struggle. They happened because of it. The problem is we've been taught to see obstacles as a sign that we're doing something wrong, that if an idea doesn't come easily, it must not be the right one. But creativity doesn't work that way. The best ideas often live on the other side of difficulty. They require us to stretch beyond what we know, to reimagine, to push past the obvious and into the extraordinary. When we encounter a challenge, we have a choice. We can see it as a wall, something that blocks our way, something to complain about. Or we can see it as a doorway, an invitation to think differently, to see what others don't, to innovate instead of retreat. Some of the greatest scientific breakthroughs happened because things didn't go as planned. Alexander Fleming didn't set out to discover penicillin. He was actually studying bacteria when he noticed that mold had killed the bacteria in one of his Petri dishes. It was a mistake, an accident. But instead of dismissing it, he leaned in. He asked, what if this means something? And because of that, he changed the course of medicine forever. The same is true for us. Every challenge we face, every frustration, every moment where things aren't working the way we expected, it's an opportunity, it's an invitation to look again, to see what we've been missing, to ask what if. But here's the catch. Most people give up too soon. The moment something becomes difficult, they assume it's not meant to be. They say, I guess I'm not creative enough, or maybe I'm not cut out for this. But what if the struggle isn't a sign to stop? It's a sign to keep going. The truth is, struggle isn't the enemy of great ideas. It's the birthplace of them. The tension, the frustration, the uncertainty. It forces us to go deeper, to think harder, to come up with solutions we never would have considered if everything had gone smoothly. So, the next time you hit a wall, remember this. The challenge isn't there to stop you. It's there to show you something you haven't seen yet. And if you keep going, if you push through, you might just discover that your best ideas were waiting for you on the other side. Some of the greatest ideas in history didn't come from a single moment of genius. They came from curiosity, the willingness to ask, what if? The ability to see connections where others see separation, the drive to explore beyond what is known, not because we have to, but because we can't help ourselves. Curiosity is the foundation of every breakthrough, every invention, every artistic masterpiece. It is the spark that turns a simple observation into a revolution. Einstein wondered what it would be like to chase a beam of light, and that question led to the theory of relativity. Steve Jobs became obsessed with calligraphy, and years later, that seemingly unrelated passion influenced the typography of the first Macintosh. The best ideas don't come from knowing all the answers. They come from asking better questions. The problem is, most of us stop questioning as we get older. As children, we are endlessly curious. We ask why, we explore without hesitation, we see the world as a place full of mystery and wonder. But somewhere along the way, we are taught to value certainty over curiosity. We are rewarded for knowing, not for exploring. We are told that the unknown is something to fear rather than something to embrace. But the best ideas don't come from certainty. They come from the space between what we know and what we are willing to discover. When we allow ourselves to be curious, we give our minds permission to wander beyond the obvious, to make unexpected connections, to see patterns no one else has noticed. And the beautiful thing about curiosity is that it doesn't require brilliance. It doesn't require resources. It doesn't even require experience. All it requires is a willingness to pay attention, to notice, to wonder, to follow an idea just to see where it leads. Some of the world's greatest ideas weren't found by people with the most education or the most experience. They were found by people who simply refused to accept the world as it was and instead asked, what else is possible? Think about the discoveries that change the way we live. Velcro was inspired by the way burrs stuck to a dog's fur. The microwave was invented when a scientist noticed that a chocolate bar in his pocket melted near a radar machine. The Post-it note exists because someone wondered if an adhesive that wasn't quite strong enough might still have a purpose. None of these ideas came from someone trying to invent the next big thing. They came from people who were paying attention, and that's the key. Curiosity is not about having all the answers. It's about noticing the details that others overlook. It's about being open to the possibility that something small, something seemingly insignificant, might hold the key to something extraordinary. But curiosity isn't passive. It's a practice. It's something we have to cultivate, to protect, to nurture. It requires us to slow down, to observe, to question. It asks us to resist the urge to immediately categorize things as useful or useless, and instead to sit with uncertainty, to explore without knowing where the path will lead. So the next time you find yourself stuck, the next time you feel like you've hit a wall, ask yourself, what am I not seeing? What else could this mean? What if the answer isn't ahead of me, but all around me, just waiting for me to notice? Because the best ideas don't always come from deep thinking. Sometimes they come from simply paying attention. We've been taught that ideas are something we control, that if we work hard enough, focus intensely enough, and push through with enough determination, the answers will come. But the best ideas don't arrive by force. They arrive when we least expect them, when we stop trying so hard, when we surrender to the natural rhythm of inspiration instead of chasing it. Think about it. When do your best ideas come to you? Is it when you're sitting at your desk, straining to think of the perfect solution? Or is it when you're in the shower, on a walk, driving with no destination, lost in a moment of effortless thought? Ideas don't follow the rigid timelines we set for them. They move like waves, sometimes rushing in all at once, sometimes pulling away, leaving us in the stillness. And just like the ocean, the more we chase a wave, the more it slips away. The key to generating your best ideas is not to grip them too tightly, but to create the conditions for them to arrive naturally. Creativity isn't about control. It's about openness. It's about stepping into a state where thoughts can move freely, where connections can form without pressure, where insights have room to rise to the surface. Some of the most successful creative minds in history understood this. Leonardo da Vinci, despite his genius, was notorious for leaving projects unfinished for years, allowing ideas to evolve in their own time. Richard Feynman, the Nobel Prize-winning physicist, would often play the bongos or pick locks when he was stuck on a problem, giving his brain space to make unexpected connections. They weren't procrastinating, they were making room for inspiration to do its work. We tend to think of inspiration as a moment of sudden brilliance, but in reality it's a process. It requires a delicate balance of effort and ease, of deep focus and complete detachment. When we force an idea, we limit our ability to see the possibilities. When we let go, when we step back, we create the space for something greater than we imagine. But letting go is hard. It feels counterintuitive. We've been taught to push, to strive, to force our way through. The idea of surrendering to inspiration, of trusting that the best ideas will come when they're ready, feels risky. But here's the truth, our minds are built for this. Our subconscious is constantly making connections, constantly working in the background, constantly piecing things together in ways we can't see. This is why stepping away isn't a waste of time. It's part of the process. When we do something else, when we move, when we listen to music, when we let our thoughts wander, we activate a different part of our brain. We give our minds permission to do what they do best: connect the invisible dots. Some of the greatest breakthroughs in history have come when people weren't working on the problem at all. Archimedes discovered the principle of buoyancy while sitting in a bath. The melody for Yesterday, one of the most famous songs ever written, came to Paul McCartney in a dream. The structure of the periodic table was revealed to Dmitri Mendeleev while he was asleep. These weren't moments of intense effort, they were moments of surrender. So the next time you feel stuck, instead of pushing harder, step back, go for a walk, play, listen. Trust that the idea is already forming, even if you can't see it yet, because the best ideas don't come when we chase them, they come when we make space for them to arrive. Ideas don't exist in isolation, they aren't born in a vacuum, and they don't flourish when they're locked away. The best ideas, the ones that change the way we think, the way we live, the way we see the world, are shaped by the conversations we have, the people we meet, and the perspectives we allow ourselves to explore. Yet for some reason, we often treat our ideas as something to protect. We hold them close, afraid that if we share them too soon, they'll be judged, stolen, or dismissed. But an idea that never leaves your mind is just a thought. It's only when it interacts with the world that it begins to grow, to evolve, to transform into something meaningful. Think about the most revolutionary ideas in history. The theory of relativity wasn't developed in isolation. It was shaped by years of discussions, debates, and collaboration with other scientists. The civil rights movement wasn't sparked by a single individual. It was built through collective voices, shared experiences, and the power of people coming together. Even the world's most innovative companies aren't the result of one brilliant mind, but of teams willing to challenge, refine, and expand on each other's ideas. We like to believe in the myth of the lone genius, the person who retreats into solitude and emerges with a masterpiece. But the truth is, even the most brilliant minds needed others. Da Vinci had conversations with scholars and inventors that influenced his thinking. Picasso was part of an entire movement of artists who pushed and challenged one another. Steve Jobs didn't build Apple alone. He surrounded himself with people who could bring his ideas to life in ways he never could have on his own. When we keep our ideas to ourselves, we limit their potential. We see only what we know, shaped by our own experiences and biases. But when we share them, when we invite other minds into the process, something incredible happens. Our ideas gain depth, clarity, and momentum. The challenge, of course, is that sharing ideas makes us vulnerable. It opens the door to criticism, to rejection, to the possibility that someone will tell us we're wrong. And that's exactly why we need to do it. Because the best ideas are not the ones that are perfect from the start. They are the ones that survive the test of conversation, that evolve through feedback, that gain strength through challenge. We don't just generate ideas alone. We refine them together. But this only works if we're open, if we're willing to listen as much as we speak, if we're willing to engage with perspectives that are different from our own, if we seek out people who challenge us, who force us to rethink, who ask us the hard questions we might be avoiding. Some of the greatest breakthroughs happen not because someone had a better idea, but because someone else asked a better question. Questions force us to see our blind spots, to reconsider our assumptions, to push beyond the limits of what we thought was possible. And the best questions don't always come from experts. They come from fresh eyes, from different fields, from unexpected voices. This is why diversity of thought matters. Not just diversity in the way we typically think about it, but diversity in experience, in background, in how we approach problems. When we surround ourselves with people who think like us, we reinforce what we already know. But when we engage with those who see the world differently, our ideas gain dimension. So if you want to generate your best ideas, don't hold them too tightly. Share them. Invite others in. Let your ideas be challenged, stretched, tested, because an idea that is never shared never has the chance to grow. The best ideas don't belong to us. They belong to the conversations we are willing to have.